Welcome to By Seat and By Saddle, seeing North America by car and by motorcycle. After our retirement in 2011, my wife Sue and I made a number of road trips around North America, taking pictures of what we saw and recording what we did. Thinking our experiences might be useful to others planning similar road trips, we decided to preserve and share our travel diaries. This is part 4 of a travel diary we made of a trip we took in March and April of 2014. We spent most of our time in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and Mississippi, but did see many other interesting things along the way. We've again repeated our list of all the things we saw on this trip to help you decide what highlights might interest you or find any pictures you might want to look at again. Part 3 ended with our tour of the Titan Missile Museum and reinforced our profound hope that the principle of deterrence makes nuclear conflict impossible. So come on and continue this trip with us. We will again take you along with words and photographs. It's always a pleasure to share them with you. Remember, you can stop the video at any time for a closer look at any photograph. Leaving the Titan Missile Museum, we again headed north on Highway 19 towards Tucson. The highway passes through the Tohono O'odham Indian Reservation. There we stopped at the Xavier del Bac Mission. This mission has a beautiful church built by the Franciscans between 1783 and 1797. It is apparently the oldest European structure in Arizona, and Wikipedia says it is widely considered to be the finest example of Spanish colonial architecture in the United States. The church was built in the Baroque style. Baroque architecture became established throughout Europe from the 1600s to the mid-1700s, apparently as a counterattack by the Jesuits on the drabness and austerity of the Protestant Reformation. It was extremely decorative, with elaborate and extravagant ornamentation consisting of complex and colorful pillars, paintings, frescoes, sculptures, and statues. The Mission Cactus Garden was a delight, and a lot of the cactuses were in bloom. For those interested in the historical context of the mission, there were a number of posters to study. The posters are shown here in rapid sequence. However, you should be able to read them by clicking on the frame to stop the video and then zooming in by holding the control key and rotating the wheel on your mouse. Note, though, that this may not work on all computers. This was a holy water tank standing on what appeared to be a cloister, but may have been a baptistry. We wondered whether it might have been leaking. Leaving the Xavier del Bac mission, we headed north to Phoenix, where a couple of nights in a motel provided a base for a day trip to Sedona. Sedona lies a bit over 100 miles further north and is the location of some spectacular red rock buttes. They are always featured in Arizona travel brochures. Our first glimpse of two of the buttes was through the windshield as we drove north. They were Bell Rock on the left and straight ahead the Courthouse Butte. This is Bell Rock, a little closer. Its summit is 4,919 feet above ground level. And this is Courthouse Butte. These are some of the additional photos of the rock formations visible while driving the 14.5-mile Red Rock Scenic Byway. They include what are thought to be Chicken Point, the one with the twin peaks, and possibly two impressive buttes in Red Rock State Park. About 30 miles south of the Sedona Red Rock Buttes is the Montezuma Castle National Monument. It is the site of a large number of ancient indigenous dwellings that were built by the Sinagua people who occupied this region around 1100 to 1425 CE. The structure shown is an incredibly well-preserved 5-story, 20-room apartment building that was built into a natural recess or alcove in the limestone cliff wall. Its preservation is partly due to the protection provided by its alcove. A great model of the castle interior was made to show exactly what the rooms inside look like. A drawing was also presented showing the castle cross-section and floor plans. There were many other cliff dwellings built into and against the cliff walls, but are less well preserved. They are identified by the large number of beam sockets, alcoves, cave-8s, and rooms excavated from the limestone cliff walls. The photos show some of them. A good example built on the section of cliff to the left of Castle Montezuma is called Castle A. It was bigger than Castle Montezuma and boasted 5 stories and 45 rooms. It also contained many more artifacts of Sinagua life and culture. The beam sockets served to anchor the beams supporting the floors and roofs of rooms that were built against the cliff. The alcoves are recesses in the cliff walls used to expand the usable space in the rooms built against the cliff. The cave-8s are rooms carved into the cliffs to expand the alcoves and are said to be used for storage, living space, and spiritual activity. Most cave-8s at Montezuma Castle are about 10 feet into the cliff. The Montezuma Castle cliff dwellings face Beaver Creek, which flows into the Verde River and is subject to periodic flooding. The height of the dwellings above the river provided safety during the inundation of the floodplain, but also protection from animals and enemies. These photos show the Arizona sycamore tree. Sycamore tree beams still support some Montezuma Castle roofs. It is simply amazing that they have lasted for 700 years. Camp Verde is a small Arizona town about 4 miles from the Montezuma Castle and contains most of the Yavapai Apache Indian Reservation. The reservation is a bit over 600 acres with over 700 indigenous residents. We thought the entrance sign was attractive, and after seeing the Montezuma Castle cliff dwellings, we appreciated the evidence of a remaining indigenous presence. It was truly an extant connection to the master builders of bygone centuries. At this point, we decided to start our return journey east and home. The desert headwinds that dogged us when we were going west now became tailwinds, and we literally flew along the I-10, easily maintaining the speed limit of 75 miles per hour, and occasionally even a bit more. Not too far from Wilcox, Arizona, we found ourselves in a region of gigantic granite boulders. We felt as if we had entered Brobdingnag, the mythical land of giants in Gulliver's Travels. We have since discovered we were probably in Texas Canyon. What was especially interesting about the boulders was how many were precariously balanced and poised to come crashing down. At the rest stop, I was wondering if the boulder on the hill behind me could come down and crush our car and trailer. Sue was wondering who taught me how to park. We now crossed the state line into New Mexico, and 28 miles west of Deming crossed the Continental Divide. Just a reminder for anyone who has forgotten, a raindrop falling on the west side of the Continental Divide will head for the Pacific Ocean, and a raindrop falling on the east side will head for the Atlantic Ocean. These pictures taken while driving are a bit blurry, but it's kind of neat to know that wherever you go, you're never far from a tourist attraction. Anyway, our supply of serapes, bows, arrows, and fireworks happened to be adequate, so we just kept on driving. Well, we have reached the end of Part 4. In Part 5, we again enter Texas and stop in El Paso, a city with a culture and flavor that really reflects its proximity to Mexico. A couple of museums provide a fascinating glimpse into the history of this region. Continuing onward, we quickly cross Texas, Louisiana, and enter Mississippi, where we stop in Vicksburg. The Vicksburg National Military Park is a moving reminder of the terrible human cost in the Civil War battle for control of the lower Mississippi. It also has a most interesting artifact raised from the bottom of the Mississippi, a Mississippi gunboat sunk by Confederate sailors hiding on shore. We then turn to head north and home, with a couple of stops along the way to continue our fun in the final miles of our trip.